Hi, I'm Sayanti, the artist behind Sayanti Finance. I'm starting today's episode by showing you the couple of Saraswati paintings that I have done in the last couple of years. So it has become an yearly tradition, just like Valentine's Day or Independence Day, to do a painting for Saraswati Puja. Saraswati is the Indian goddess of wisdom, and I like to pay my yearly tribute to her in form of artwork. So today I decided to do an oil painting. I am starting this oil painting by doing a rough underpainting with gray and white, and I had to deliberate a lot before doing this. I wasn't really sure whether I need to do an underpainting for the sky or what colors to go for in the underpainting, and at the very end I chose gray and white, or rather black and white, or monochromatic tone. But instead of using black mixed with white for my gray, I chose Payne's gray, because Payne's gray is a cooler kind of gray color. It has some blue undertones, and I really like that color. And as you will see later in the painting, I'll be using a lot of shades of blue in this painting, so that Payne's gray would be a very good idea, and I wasn't wrong on that. On the underpainting part, I did not go on very big details. I just blocked in the entire area with colors and wanted to place where things would be, and try to create a value guideline or a value map for me to later start with the colors. So once I put the gray and white in whichever areas I wanted, in more or less, featuring the right value map, I let that underpainting dry. I am painting a bird after a very long time, and frankly this is my first oil painting of a swan that I'm doing. And although I looked at a very real reference photo, this is kind of like a surreal painting, so it wasn't really a very realistic swan there. For that matter, it had a lot of colors which swans probably does not have. I kind of gave it a purple, teal, blue look along with the whites, and swans you would generally picture in your mind as a white, but I just thought that that color palette just went right with this composition. So yeah, that was kind of a challenge to do in this painting, but I really like challenges, as you know, and I thought and in the end everything turned out pretty okay. So once that underpainting was dry, which took a couple of days, I started on with the colors, and obviously I started with the background, and I put in some dark blues and purples in the darker areas of the sky. And I also put a lot of turquoise color in the lighter areas. So for the blue, I used some cobalt blue, some ultramarine blue. For the purple, I'm using a dioxazine purple, and like I already mentioned, I'm using a turquoise as well, and lots of white for all these blue and purple colors. Later I'm going to pull in some magenta tones too, but I'm using a permanent rose color for that magenta tone. And there are also some muddy colors that I'm pulling in at this point of time, because I'm going to paint some more layers on top of that, lighten them, and add some more colors in the sky. I do want a colorful sky, but I don't want a very bright sky, because if it is a very bright sky with lots of yellows, reds, and oranges, the sky will attract all the attention, and I want the viewer's attention to focus on the swan and the Saraswati, the goddess painting, the elements, the subject matter to be that one, and that being the source of focus. And that's why, yes, I want a lot of colors in the sky, but I don't want it to be a colorful sky, if that makes any sense at all. I know I'm not the best with words. I'm much better with my brush. So after I put that initial layer of colors, I added a lot of whites in the lighter areas, and then I took my 1-inch blender brush and blended that out more or less to a smooth element. and then I'm adding another layer of dark colors. But this time I'm not adding colors all over the area. I'm choosing some specific areas to darken and specific areas to lighten to get the effect of nice clouds in the sky, but not make it too much bright. Once I did the white clouds here and there, once again I will use my blending brush. So throughout the entire painting, other than fine details, wherever I'm putting any amount of paint, I'll go back with my big blender brush or a small mop brush and blend it out, because I kind of want a smooth transition, not very sharp contrast, other than some of the areas like in the edges of the wings and all that. There I put some colors and I did not smudge them up. I let them be like that. Now onto the bird. And in the bird body and the figure, like my usual nature, I put in the darks first when I work with acrylics or oils for that matter, and I did that here too. And for the darks I chose purple mixed with romber at first, and in the later layers I will come back with lots of blues, and the different layers together will pull together and make like a bluish white color. But at this point the darker areas are purple and romber, and in some areas I'm also mixing in a little bit of ultramarine blue to that mix to get the darkness right. There's a lot of grays, blues in this painting. In fact, at one point of time I just felt that it's just a blue, and it was like too blue for me. But in the end I think I adjusted the color a little bit here and there, added a tiny bit of yellow and flesh tints here and there, and that made the color palette pop out. Now in this kind of a painting, a challenge is that to make the contrasts work, because there are similar colors in the entire painting. There's a lot of blues, purples in the entire painting. So to make each area pop out and to make each area stand out and to make the contrast work is kind of like a challenge. And it does not happen like you put the color and it works. It does not happen that way. At least it did not happen that way for me. So I had to do a lot of color hue value adjusting over the layers. I worked on this painting in 4 different days and lots of different hours, obviously. And because I had to let the paint dry in between layers before I added more paint and adjusted colors, and that made it an even more lengthy process. Now I'm starting on the body of Saraswati. Like I mentioned earlier, Saraswati is in the Indian mythology, in the Indian Hindu philosophy, is the goddess of wisdom. Although in the ultimate Hindu philosophy they believe in one god, but there is like this mythological system where each god has been provided the job of certain amount of work. Some are wealth and health, well-being, wealth, and so Saraswati is the goddess of wisdom. It's very similar to Greek mythology, and that's something that's very close to me. I really like ancient cultures, ancient mythologies, ancient philosophies, and that's obviously a part of my surrealistic themes. Onto the hair of Saraswati, I wanted it to be black hair, but black is just not plain black, right? Because there will be lots of lights and darks depending on where the light is hitting the hair. There will be a lot of highlights and undertones, and between the dark and the highlight there will be a lot of mid-tone values as well. So that's what I'm adjusting at this point. I'm going around the face and the body, and just defining those areas by putting some color around those areas, and then I'll have to blend those with the background so that it does not look like the outlines that you would rather see in cartoons but not in this kind of a painting. So onto the water part, I am following the same kind of color palette that I used for the sky, but there is a lot of waves, or impression of waves rather. I did not do very realistic waves. Once again, I did not want the waves to pull all the attention, all the foam spray or water spray to take all the attention. So I kind of did a little bit of impression of those areas, did the value mapping right, did the darks and lights, put the darks and lights in the right areas, and kind of follow the pattern on the color palette, the similar one as I used in the sky, so that it kind of all tones down together and comes together and unifies as the same painting. But like I said, I did not go for a supreme realistic look as far as the water is concerned, as the waves is concerned, because I did not want the attention to be pulled to those areas. I just wanted the look of water to just understand that yes, this is water and that's about it. Now on to the body of the swan. The next day I'm adding a lot of darker values with blues and grays. At this point it looks like a very dirty swan. It looks like it's all caked with mud and all that. And then I'm coming back with turquoise and mixing them all together and creating the illusion of darks and lights. But you will see that as time proceeds and this layer dries and I add another layer and adjust my darks and lights and add some bright highlights, it all comes together. Yes, it does not become a white swan from a blue swan. It does have a lot of blue tones, which probably, as I mentioned earlier, is not what you see in a realistic swan, but I just wanted a color theme going on here. I just had a color theme going on here, and I wanted all the elements in the painting to follow the same color theme. And well, in the end, it's a surrealistic painting, so it doesn't have to be the real colors of a swan. But I did pay a lot of attention to the values, the darks and lights, from where the light source is and the highlights going on. And I also paid a lot of attention to the direction of fur. I painted all the fur in the direction of the fur. In the body, I kept it a minimal hint. I blended out most of it because it's kind of from a distance, so you won't be able to see each and every and why do I keep saying fur? It's actually feather. I'm sorry if I probably said countless number of times fur, but it's actually feather. So feather, yes, you will see a hint of the feathery look, but not a whole lot because it's after all in a big distance. However, in the wings I created a lot of fine details. At this point, this is the first time I'm putting on the details on the wings. So I'm putting a lot of whites on the edges. And as soon as I put some white on the edges and kind of define the edges, it automatically creates that beautiful contrast that I'm looking for. But I still have a long way to go. As I'm putting on those edges, I'll have to let them dry and come back and add some darker shadows in between, then again hype up the lighter elements one more time, in fact a couple of more times, before it all ties down together. Wherever I'm putting lighter areas, I'm putting darker areas surrounding it so that the contrast balances out. In a lot of areas in the body of this one, I had to put very dark colors, and right next to it I put very light highlights and tried to tie it all together. Onto the other wing, I'm following the same pattern, and you will see that I'm paying very close attention to where the wing striations I'm placing and making sure they all tie down together and follow a proper direction of the wing. It should not look like one wing is coming from one direction and the other wing is going in a completely other direction. That doesn't really happen. It just needs to all tie down together. And at this point I have to mention that All these can only work out if you are using a reference photo. Unless you have painted like countless number of swans, you probably cannot know where the wing bones are and where the feathers need to go, what are the directions you need to follow. So in my case, like I said, this is the first time painting a swan with oil. I painted a lot of birds, but then birds come in different forms, shapes, colors, and values, and different kind of wing patterns. So yes, that bird painting experience that I've had in past is valuable, but at the same time I had to do a lot of new things to adjust to this particular bird. Now I'm working on the details on the face. Since this is a very small face, even less than an inch, although the close-up shows a lot of details, but actually it was a very little space to create very good details. So I just kind of created the hint of full lips and nose and face and worked more on the lights and darks. So I kind of depended on the contrasts of the dark areas to put forward the lighter areas. And I messed it up a couple of times before I actually pulled it all together while putting in the eyes and the eyebrows and the very fine details of the hands and all that. It's very difficult even to work with the finest detail brush in this little amount of space. Yes, I could have gone for a bigger canvas, but it just felt right. The 11:5:14 just felt the right size. I did not want to go any bigger than that. So that's where I am blending, smudging out a little bit of the water impressions and adding a little bit of more colors in between to kind of create the contrast between the lights and dark, between the sea foam and the sea water. And I'm using a bristle brush here, and a round bristle brush, and because of the texture of these round bristle brushes, it's automatically creating a lot of textures like you would see in sea foam and sea waves. And I'm just dabbing some white paint here and there, and because the paint that is there before is darker, has a lot of undertones of gray, purple, and blue, these white dabs are really standing out. But make sure you do not add too much of those highlights, otherwise they will take away all the attention. Now onto the water in the foreground, I'm adding a lot of blues in between the dark grays, and I'm also enhancing some of the waves breaking by using a little bit more highlights of whites. I'll also come back with some flesh tone like colors, like a beige cream color in between the waves on the left side and on the right as well, to tie it all together, kind of create the same kind of color pattern as you've seen in the sky. Now I did a lot of paint splatter, and this was the part I really enjoyed. I thought that after adding these paint splatters of white and creating that spraying water effect, it really started to come together for me. I don't know about, I would like to know your thoughts, whether you felt the same as well. So let me know in the comments what you thought about it. But I really thought that those paint splatters did make a lot of difference. Now on to my third day painting those wings. As you can see, I am deepening the shadow striations in between and then coming back with a lot of bright white highlights on top of the shadows to create the contrast and kind of show the striations between each and every wing. I'm also sharpening the darks and lights in the hair, adding a lot more highlights, but at the same time darkening the darks, because it's a contrast which actually makes things look good together. At this point, it's just like cleaning some finer details in the area and making everything tie down together. That is more or less all about this painting. If you have any questions further on about the process, let me know in the comments. And if you like the painting, give me a thumbs up and share it with your friends. I would really appreciate that. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, consider subscribing because I'm posting new painting videos every week on Wednesdays and Fridays. And I'm also going through a February challenge. So if you look onto my social media on Facebook and Instagram, you will see time lapses every day throughout the month. So thank you for watching.